Welcome to SFG Top Performance. Today we have our regulars, Jason and Derrick here. They're going to bring us up to speed what's been going on and what they've seen here in the last month and what we're planning to do next.
It's been a busy month. We've seen a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of weeds die. We've seen a lot of good things happen in our corn and soybean fields. So we'll start with the corn. Last time we talked, the corn, maybe it was too wet to get it in, or it was really slow growing, and that corn has exploded. We went from 11 inches tall. I measured several fields that were 9 to 11 inches tall the 9th of June, and they've doubled in size by the following week, and a lot of them fields are shoulder high on me, which isn't very tall, but they're fairly tall. They're going to be tasseling in the next week, 10 days. Some of the early planted ones. So, it's really impressive what it's done. With this, there's still a few things that we can do. If you have a good looking field and maybe you've done some tissue samples and you think, hey, that nitrogen, maybe I should do something. There's still some things we can do with that. Some of this corn's getting too tall to run over with a high sprayer like we've done in the last couple of weeks. But there are, the fungicides, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and we can add some micronutrients to that. You can get some slow release nitrogen on it with your fungicide, and they have SRN 25B, which is a great way to get some boron in there, get that ear growth, along with your fungicide when it's time to do it. And Derrick, we talk a lot about fungicide and the return to fungicide score. Tell us what that means. What are we talking about when we say that?
Sure. So we have access to some information that's called response to fungicide scores, and that's one of our distributors that they put together real statistical data on which hybrids respond the best to fungicide applications. So we've been saying it over the past couple years we've been doing this podcast, and kind of a general rule of thumb on soybeans, we almost just spray every acre with fungicide. The guys that are putting a lot of fungicide on, and we're seeing really consistent returns. But corn sometimes it's hit and miss, and we know that. So that's why we have these scores. And what this score is, it takes out all the other variables. It just sprays all the hybrids put together, which one responds yield wise. It obviously varies with how much disease pressure you have out there, but there's some years that we don't have a lot of disease pressure, and we're still getting big responses out of this corn, whether it be for the plant health aspects or the standability piece. And so it's definitely without a doubt, there are just some hybrids that respond better to fungicide yield-wise. So they put them in 3 categories, low, medium, high. And as a general rule of thumb, I give recommendations to spray the ones that are in the medium to high. And the scale changes every year. For the 2021 data, even the low end is an average of 10 bushel in their low end for the hybrids they have, and that more than pays for the fungicide application right now. Fungicides, but they've always been kind of not a pricier item, but they've always been a higher end item. But with the price increase of everything this year, they've gone up, but they haven't gone up. They haven't doubled and that sort of thing. So we can get really good returns if we get that 7-8 bushel corn, and it's pretty. If we're picking and choosing the right fields, it's pretty easy to find that. And another way we give recommendations is we like to push the best field. I don't like to necessarily take the field that looks a little rough. Let's go put $30-$40 worth of fungicide and SRN 25B on it to brighten it up, make it better. I think a lot of that money is you want to put that on your best looking field, and you want to push that, because if your best field is doing 200 bushel corn and you can push that, we can get those fields to give us a little more yield, get that 220, get that 225. But our worst fields that are doing the 140, 150 bushel corn consistently, that are the high clays and that sort of thing, I don't think we need to be spending the money on there. So that's why we want to make sure we're looking at the hybrid, we want to make sure we're looking at the field, and that starts from the beginning with where you put the seed and what seed you buy, and it's all a big system that you got to put it all together. It's not just there's fungus out there, I'm going to spray fungicide. So there's a lot of variables there, but we have a lot of information that we can find and put together the best potential for some yield. What I'm seeing out in corn this year so far, like Jason's saying, is we're in that rapid growth stage, and we've done a heck of a lot of tissue samples within the last couple weeks. And now in the stage corn side, I got a corn plant here. We're in the V9 to V10 stage. I almost pump the brakes a little bit on tissue samples right now because it seems that corn is growing so fast. It's pumping nutrients absolutely as fast as it can. I mean, corn has 600 bushel yield potential in the bag, so it's trying to pump as many nutrients as it possibly can, and we can't get them. We can't get them into the plant fast enough unless you're in, greenhouse situations. You can control every variable. So a lot of our tissue samples that we take now, I took some this week and looked at the results, and they were deficient in just about everything. So I don't panic too much this time of year when we're showing deficiencies because it's really consistent. We need to give it a couple weeks till we get into that tasseling time to take some more samples. But along that note, this corn is pumping nitrogen in as fast as it can. I mean, it's trying to pump in 10, 15, 20 pounds of nitrogen a day. So that's why these in-season applications are so important. You want to put that, you want to get as much nitrogen on right before that rapid growth stage as possible. I mean, some guys, this corn, I cut it up, but it was like shoulder to head high. And some guys would go in now and dribble in nitrogen, that sort of thing. But I think you miss that window when you're waiting. Then I like when we've done a lot of it at knee high to waist high corn and that sort of thing. But
Yep. We've talked a lot about corn and the soybeans. They've been really stagnant. They haven't grown like we thought, like I think they should. But in the last week, they've done that. They've grown. They look good. So I think it's time to start looking at them, and it's time to get them post sprayed and look at some micro packs if we need some. If you see some deficiencies, it's pretty simple to put a micro pack in now or at fungicide time. And I know Derrick mentioned a little about the fungicides and how on soybeans they are not like corn, where you need to look at the variety, where they're a little bit more. Often in the soybean, the fungicide is going to give you a return. And the biggest return is when you add that little bit of insecticide to it, and there's that synergistic effect that just explodes that yield. That combination is just incredible what we've seen in the last couple of years as far as responses from that. So, and then if you feel there's several micro packs that do really well at that time, we have the symbol release, and there's several others that can be thrown in there and work awesome and just help that yield bump it a little bit. And there's some other products we can use to increase growth, and there's so many different ways you can go at that time, and just depending on what your field needs. Every field's looks a little different and there's a lot of things that can happen out there. So Derrick, do you have anything else to add with the soybean fungicide? And
yeah, soybean fungicide, like we said, we want to put the insecticide in with it, which is a little different than corn. Corn, if I see insects, then we'll put the insecticide in with it, but we haven't seen very much pressure. But kind of going back a little bit this year, I've noticed there some of the later planted corn that kind of came up uneven a little bit behind some of the other corn. I've seen more stink bug damage this year, where those are piercing, sucking mouth parts, so they're actually sucking out the nutrients a little bit. And what they do is, if they get after the plant really bad, it'll start to essentially it'll stunt it, and they'll throw out tillers, and then it looks. It looked pretty rough there. I was looking at some last week, and I was almost a little concerned. But they've kind of moved on, I guess I could say. And then this week of growth, it's changed a lot. So usually this time of year, and it's the same thing when we post spray soybeans and ding them a little bit. If you give it a little bit of time, unless it's huge defoliation, that plant's growing so fast, we're going to grow out of it. And I guess in that vein, we're doing a lot of post spraying beans right now, and our territory moved to enlist quite a bit. And when you have enlist in there, and you have all the adjuvants, and you add the glyphosate, it's really oily. And we've been burning some beans, and we're gonna see that, especially right on the edges where we have a little bit of overlap. You have overlap in every field. If you're not overlapping a little bit, you're not getting every part of the field. So expect a little burn with that enlist program. And it's cosmetic. I mean, we used to use burners on beans and burn them way back, and they came back. And as long as that growing point is still growing, we're not losing any yield. And even if the top gets totally burned out, and those beans will bush out, throw their axillary buds, they call them. And I'm not concerned at all. It almost sounds like an excuse, but beans are just so resilient that if we burn them back a little bit, heck, they say a stress bean yields. So it might even help yield a little bit, but I'm not concerned. Just give it a week, and then if there is an issue, just sure let us know. We'll document it, take note of it, and we'll make it right if we need to, you'd say.
Yep. And one other thing I've seen, we had a little bit of storm damage a week ago tomorrow, which would have been last Saturday, north of Indianola and west of Indianola. We have half a dozen customers up there whose corn just looked flat. I took a drive Saturday night, and it looked terrible. But that corn has come back. I was up there yesterday, and it's standing up. Looks really good. I expected to see maybe a little goosenecking here and there. Nothing. It looks incredible. So it was at the right growth stage. As we get a little farther along here, we're going to be a little bit more, have a few more problems with that. If that would happen, it could break off in this rapid growth we've been having. And that corn was very tall. It was chest to shoulder high, so it was good, tall corn. But it withstood it. It come back, looks good. So I don't think there'll be any issues there. So, and there was some hail there, and it stripped a lot of leaves, but it was early enough. We talked about the corn and the size and the growth and everything, but it wasn't at that stage where it's close to the tassel coming out. So the new leaves on top will still be full leaves. They won't be tore, and we've talked about that, I think, last year on this podcast where, if your leaves are tore at the bottom, the new ones coming out will still be good, healthy leaves. Yeah, and so, excuse me. So that, there won't be any problems with that. So, you had some other things to add, Derrick, with the crop health and the staging.
And like you said, we're at that stage where where corn's growing so fast, and we're at the little cross our finger stage, because we get a big wind now, and it's hard on it because it's growing so fast. It needs to get the roots all the way down. So we're hoping for some nice weather right now, especially tasseling here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We want 85 degrees and sunny and a rain shower every week. So if we can doctor that up, that'd be really good. And the last thing I wanted to go over was just some late season staging on corn. Now we have a corn plant that's got all these leaves. How do you know what stage it's at? And the best way to do it is to split the stalk open. And I have one here, and we'll put it up on the screen. You want to look for the first elongated node, and that's down towards the bottom of the plant, and that's V5. And at V5, this was earlier in the season, when corn was about knee high or so, it determined its number of rows on the ear. So it determined that already. So we already know that we're going to have 14, 16, 18 around on corn right now. That's already determined. Now we just need to determine how long that ear is going to be. And this corn was at V10. And what you do, you find the top collared leaf. You start counting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This top leaf, it's pretty shredded here, but that was the top collared leaf. So that's a V9. And we have a couple weeks until we start determining the length of the ear, how many kernels there's going to be in each row. But that gets determined, right kind of before tassel time. So it's just really important this time of year, and the tassel comes out, and we don't want a lot of heat stress there. So this next month is critical for corn. Hopefully all our heat was in June like it was last year, and the weather shaped up a little bit than it has the last 2 weeks. But we're really wanting kind of milder conditions and get good pollination, and we still got good potential for a lot of crop here this year. But Charles, how has the applications been going this last month?
Well, we've been chugging right along and trying to keep everything going and trying to stay ahead of it, and done a pretty good job of keeping all the fires put out, if you want to say. And like I say, we're finishing up post-spring. We got another good week, and we'll be over the hump, if you want to say. Next week after this holiday, we'll get things finished up there. They're finishing up side dressing. Did quite a bit of side dressing here in the last week, 10 days. Top dressing, the liquid side dressing's done. We're in really good shape there. Other things that are going on is they got the beet tank at Pleasantville built. It's built. They got to put the liner in here in the next week. We'll start filling it the following week, the middle of the month of July. They'll start filling that in Pleasantville. Any other major work? They don't have any big projects. Milo, they're putting the structure up, where the overheads will the pits in, and the structure is being laid out for the overheads, the tanks to sit on top. So equipment will start showing up for that elevator here they said this month, so sooner than later, hopefully. But anyway, we've struggled getting equipment in, but anyway, it's a work in progress. But anyway, everything's going pretty good. We're doing some painting on some anhydrous wagons over there at the Milo area, and going through anhydrous toolbars, or getting them all put away and serviced, and it's just go. But outside of that, we're ready for summer to actually start. I think it'll actually be here. Remember, just a month ago, we were like, it's never going to get here, and it's like every year, just boom, it's here and it's gone. Kids will be going back to school before you know it. But anyway, well, I want to thank you for joining us on this episode. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you.